You're watching Power Media Network.
I gotta tell you something I could do. I could be running or I'm chasing you, but I won't. Cause I got better things to do. Rather spend my precious time chasing somebody who loves me too. If I got $1 for every time you slam the door, I would be the richest girl alive, life. If you hadn't run away every time I asked you stay, you would sleep right next to me tonight. But you didn't know me, all you wanted was a game to play, and you couldn't handle that I had my ways. About your magics and your side chicks, I'm away.
Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We hope your experience is fruitful. Please feel free to visit our website to find out how you can join our growing family. While we are loading your experience, please do us a quick favor and hit that like button from whichever platform you're watching or listening on. Also, share so others may enjoy as well. And we hope you would consider hitting that subscribe or follow button so you can check out more of our amazing content. All right, let's start the show.
Victorious! Victorious!
Oh, y'all always catch me in mid-dance. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday, Junior. You know, I was just telling my special guest that Thursdays are my favorite day of the week because then Friday comes and then it's the weekend. But the sad part is the weekend goes by in like 30 minutes and then it's back to Monday. But I don't, it is what it is. We still gonna push through and we're gonna be all right. So happy Friday, Junior. Welcome to this week's episode of Dr. Victorious, where we explore the intersections of social justice, wellness, and what it means to show up fully human, especially from a Black perspective, because as you can tell, I'm Black. Hey, I'm your host, Dr. Nicole D. Vick. Yay! Woo! In this episode, we are continuing my monthly series of Someone You Should Know. And I'm going to introduce you to a leader, researcher, and advocate who is reimagining what it means for Black male students to not just succeed, but to truly thrive. And I think this is such an important conversation to have. I see a lot of conversations on social media about the gap in achievement between Black men and Black women and how we can, get our Black men up and running. I mean, not that they not up and running, they there, but how we can get them, everybody, I guess, is the better way to say that, everybody kind of better than they were before. Before I start talking myself into a rabbit hole, into a circle, let me just go on and do what I'm supposed to do, and which is to go into the scroll stroll. These are some interesting ones. The scroll stroll. Producer, we need a little song for the scroll stroll, like a little something, so a little music, little jingle or something. Maybe I'll come up with it and then I'll let you know, because you know me, I'm always coming up with something. So the first one is about the moon. Oh my gosh. So the little spaceship is up in all up in the space and going around to everywhere, and moon and here and there and hither and thither, and they're taking photographs and they're using very high resolution cameras. And this photograph of the moon, I'm like, wait, I thought the moon was just gray. Like, what's all these different colors and stuff look like tie-dye? Like, wait, I didn't know. But all that to say, it's so beautiful and it's so it gives me like this, like, wow, to see the moon, the earth, right? It's kind of like, it reminds me of how in some respects we're important, but in some respects, we're just a tiny speck on this giant globe, which is the Earth, in this giant universe, right? So I'm really interested in it. And a quick story about space. When I was a kid, my dad had a what you call it? I was gonna say a microscope. That is not the correct telescope. Oh my god, a telescope, and he would use it to look at the moon and the stars. And I remember he had this book called, I think it's called Atlas of the Night Sky, and so he was really into that sort of thing. And I think that's why these photos are like wow, and I'm really intrigued and interested in them. So that's the first scroll stroll. If you haven't seen the photos or haven't been checking in, I don't know if they're on their way back yet or not. I'm not sure, but you can find all this stuff on social media, the photos and some of the things that folks have been seeing as they've been out in space and some of the stuff that they've been doing, and it's been really, really cool. And of course, I think the captain or the head is a Black man, a Gen Xer at that. And it's been really interesting to hear about his journey into astronautics, astrology, astronomy. I don't know where my words are escaping me, but y'all know what I'm talking about. And so it's been really cool to see him in space, and everybody else, of course, that is involved. And even some of the scientists and stuff that are at NASA on the ground as well, some of their stories and things. So the next one, oh boy. I thought, and maybe I'm mistaken, I thought we had collectively said Kanye, we finna put him over there on the side. We not doing this with this man. He over there. Don't nobody talk about him no more. Just pretend he's not there. But then he had these concerts and he sold out all of the concerts. And then you start to see people at the concerts and you're like, for real, why are you here? Your feelings get hurt. So there's even like a food journalist that I follow on Facebook, and he was at the concert, and I'm like, not you too, man. And so you can't see my shirt really well, but it says disappointed but not surprised. And that's, I think, how I feel about this whole thing. Like, people were saying what they were saying, like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. The commentary that he has had over the years about any number of things. He said a whole host of crazy things. And people have been really like, oh, he's canceled. But then when the concert comes, everybody at the concert, I'm like, dang. So I will just say, I was definitely disappointed to hear that they had been sold out. People are allowed to do whatever they want to do with their money, but at the same time, like, we got to have some sort of like standards by which we agree to deal with people or not. And to say things like slavery was a choice, that's crazy. That's crazy. I don't know if I would go to no concert just on that alone. That statement alone, I'm like, huh? So I don't know. All I'm gonna say is I was disappointed, not surprised, really, but really disappointed. So, and then the last one, a little bit of a jokey joke. Somebody on Threads talked about some black tacos, and if you black, you know what black tacos are. And so she started listing the ingredients: ground beef or turkey, okay; hard shell tacos, okay; Ortega taco sauce, for Black Californians, probably not. Lori's taco seasoning, maybe. Kraft Mexican shredded cheese, lettuce, tomato, sour cream, and then she lost me. This is where I got lost. I said, I don't know where we going. I'm confused. She said cucumbers. I don't know not one person, black or otherwise, that puts cucumbers on their black tacos. Jalapenos, yes. Cucumbers? And then when she said I'm from Chicago, I was like, maybe that's what it is. Because the Black California contingent for the black tacos, we not that. So I want to know, if you're watching, do you put cucumbers on your tacos? Because I don't, I have never heard that. And we are, again, I'm in Los Angeles, where there's a lot of Mexicans and other Latinos. I have never in my entire life heard putting the cucumbers on the taco. Now, if that's what the folks do, I stand corrected, but I have a feeling that's not what happens. Black California tacos, sometimes we put cilantro. I know I do on mine. I'm vegan, so I don't use regular cheese and all that other stuff, but my tacos probably mimic more of traditional taco than it does a black taco, and that's okay. Black tacos are good too, though. I remember when I was growing up, we used to put the American cheese in there and sometimes ketchup. It was what it was. and it was good at the time, so it was okay. But that made me laugh about the cucumbers. I'm gonna ask my guest when he comes on, do he put cucumbers in his tacos, and we're gonna see how that go. All right, let's head to commercial, and we'll bring on our special guest. See you in a little bit.
This is Tammy from Tammy's Take, and you're watching Pyro Media Network.
Hey, it's Pastor Kim from It's Just Kim Live Show, and you're watching Pyro Media Network.
And we are back. I forgot to run through these comments. Sometimes I be just so, irritated by stuff like cucumbers on tacos. I miss y'all comments, y'all, but y'all went in when I was talking about Kanye in this concert. I had forgotten, my bad. I didn't remember the KKK outfit, the 3K outfit. I didn't even remember that. I remember slavery was a choice. I remember White Lives Matter, and there was a couple other things. I feel like he was doing something good when he was like, what was it? George Bush don't care about black people. Like I was like, yes. And then he went the other direction. And I'm like, no. And I talked to my daughter who is a younger millennial, older Gen Z. And she's like, I miss the old Kanye, like, the album, what was it called? College Dropout. Like we miss those days. So I don't know, man. Maybe he can be redeemed. I don't know. Anyway, I have a special guest on my Someone You Should Know series. Let me read the bio, and then we're going to get in there. Let's see what the comments say. Yes, before the sunken place. Indeed. We're trying to keep the rest of our people up out of that place. And some of them ain't listening. I'm like, come out. Come on, wake up. Anyway, let me get into the bio of my guest. With over 10 years of experience in higher education, administration, and community empowerment, he is passionate about creating opportunities for students to learn, grow, and serve. In his previous role as Assistant Dean of Admissions and Student Affairs at the University of Southern California, that's where I went to school, and in his current role as Director of College Counseling at College Track, he manages a team of professionals who provide comprehensive counseling and support services to prospective and current students, covering academic, financial, career, and personal matters. And if you ever work with students, it's not just about the academics, it's about the whole thing. He also leverages his expertise in community engagement and social justice to coordinate and oversee various programs and initiatives that connect the university with the local and global community. There's a lot of things he's done, and I want to let him talk about what he does instead of me just kind of reading it off. But just that little tidbit should tell you the caliber of the person we bringing on. So let's bring on Dr. Daveon Swan. Hello.
Hey, Dr. Vick, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Dr. Swan. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Yeah. Was you at that Kanye concert?
I was not at the Kanye concert. I'm with your daughter. I got to have the old Kanye or nothing. As of right now, we gonna pray for his redemption. But right now, he's not on the list.
Okay, I was just checking. Oh, and do you put cucumbers in your tacos?
So glad you asked me that because I am a taco connoisseur. If anybody knows me, they know that tacos are my go-to. If I ever get married, she must make tacos has been on the requirement list for years, and there will never be a place for cucumbers on my taco.
I was just so confused. I said cucumbers because I was following. I was like, okay, yes, yeah, and I said, what? Huh? Cucumbers? Why would you do that?
Never.
Why? A cucumber salad on the side.
I can mess with that.
Cucumbers in? No. And you know, we down here in Los Angeles. It's a Vallarta grocery store by me. I go in there all the time. I ain't seen no cucumber, nothing for no taco. I ain't never seen it.
I might do like a peach mango salsa. I do some cilantro, a little pico de gallo, some avocado, a little something.
Cucumber. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But see, she's Chicago. That's I don't know. They different over there.
My Chicago people will get me if I talk about it, so I can't do it.
I mean, maybe ask them, do they do the cucumbers in the tacos? I don't know.
You have to be careful.
I'm concerned. So before we get into this interview, I want to just, it's funny how big the world is. I was just talking about the moon and the photos from the space thing, the spaceship and everything, how big the world is and how small it is at the same time. So you and I met at I think it's called the R&B Summit at Cal State Dominguez Hills. We were both presenting. I was presenting, you had your session as well. And then so we connected. I was there. My friend Dante, who has also been on this show as a guest, was there. And so we connected with you at the end. And then when I went, as our phones do, they be listening to us and be all about our conversations. Your profile had popped up. I think it was on Facebook or Instagram. I can't remember which one, but it said we had 26 mutual friends. And I said, now, wait a minute now. How? And I started scrolling. I'm like, wow, it is so crazy how I will speak for myself. I come across people and ultimately there's always a connection back to something. It could be USC, it could be some other sort of connection. And it's really, really interesting to me how that happens to me in my life. So I don't know if you want to speak to those 26 people I don't even know. Did you get that same
I definitely did. I meant to hit you up about that actually, because for me it was Instagram, and so I think you had commented on my post from the session at Dominguez Hills. Shout out to their program over there, the Black Resource Center. And when you commented, my auntie hit me, was like, you know Nicole? I was like, how do you know Dr. Vick? Because you're Dr. Vick to me. But yeah, so the world is small, 6 degrees of separation, they say. And also, like my grandmama will say, it pays to treat people nicely because you never know who knows who.
Never know. And that person may be in a position to help you, give you a little, maybe not even really something we would consider substantial, but they can at least say, go that way, don't go this way. Anything, you just never know. And I definitely agree with that because folks have come into my life in ways, like I met somebody on LinkedIn once. He reached out to me and he became a really good friend and actually was a real help to me when I broke my ankle. Sadly, he's no longer here with us, but sometimes those small interactions can become so big. So I'm with you said your grandma said that. I'm with grandma on that. So let's talk about who you are beyond your title, because you have the academic work, but there's a lot that you're doing, especially when we talk about Black boys and young Black men. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about that. Before anything else, I'm somebody who deeply believes in our young people, especially our Black men. I can think back to my early days coming out of college, and I know we're not necessarily talking about work, but it's all connected for me. I was in this one particular program where we were working for gang reduction and youth development, and we did this one assessment. We talk about being statistics, and we did this one assessment, and it was to tell you the likelihood of you joining a gang or being involved in the system. And there were, I want to say, 11 risk factors, and out of the 11 risk factors, I realized that I was high risk at 9 out of the 11. And so the question became, what's the difference for me? And it was about the mentorship. It was about having those positive peer role models, those people that believed in me. The church was a big deal for me. I'm a church boy at heart. You'll always see it. So while I'm a scholar, a practitioner, a researcher, I'm a Black man that grew up in the Crenshaw district. And I've seen what happens. Hey, represent for the district, put on. But I've said, okay, I see what I might need to borrow that one time for the one time. But I see what happens when you nurture the belief in someone. And so the work isn't just personal, professional, it's personal. It's shaped by my experience and what I witnessed.
And I'm finding that every time I have someone on here, and it don't even matter what the topic is, that's where it always goes back to. This is not a professional thing. This is actually personal. This is about lived experience and how important it is. I had someone on here talking about maternal health and the work that they're doing in that. And it was like, listen, I done been through a thing or two, and that's why I'm doing it. So I feel like for us as Black people, and I guess other people too, but I'm Black, so I can only speak for us. We tend to go where that lived experience makes the most sense for us, and that desire and want to give back. I think that for a lot of us, it feels like an obligation. Like it's not just a nice thing to do to give back. Like I almost feel like I'm obligated to do so. And I'm sure you probably feel the same. What did you need as a young Black boy that you now see showing up in your work?
Wow, that's a deep question. One of my favorite quotes is become the change that you wish to see in the world. So you're leading me right down that path. I was raised by a single mother. Dad was around, but sometimes was not around. Sometimes he was on vacation. But he definitely taught me a lot of things in my adulthood. But in my formative years, being there with my mother, I was looking for someone to be able to give me some guidance and direction. I wanted male mentors. I was like, who's going to show me this way? And I would see people call, their pastor's dad, or they would go to their godfather. And I didn't necessarily have that. I had to sort of like put together composites of pieces of what I was looking for. Someone to show me what it's like to manage finances, someone to show me how to tie a tie. I always tell this story. It was a woman that taught me how to tie my tie. And so from that point on, I feel like I've taught at least 200 young men how to tie ties. I do tying workshops because I want to be that person for somebody. I have a younger brother. I want to make sure that I show him an example. Now that me and my dad are aligned with things, it's great to be able to come back and say, the thing that I was missing, that role model, that person, that encouragement, that place where you can be safe and vulnerable, and that place that will tell you when to knuck if you buck, I needed that. So I have to be those things for somebody else.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I'm glad. It sounds like maybe there was some, not alignment earlier in life with your dad, but it sounds like now things are a little bit better.
Oh, that's my dad.
I love that, because it's really important to have really strong relationships with your family, especially a dad. We got a comment earlier. It says we need more like you too, because there are a lot of gatekeepers out here. And I agree. I'm surprised sometimes to see how often I see people gatekeep. Now, gatekeeping to some degree, I think is appropriate, especially when we're talking about Black people business. I think sometimes we need to learn how to do that a little bit better. Like, everybody don't need to know what we're talking about, but in between folks, we need to be telling everything I know, and I'm gonna tell you everything I know, so that you can do what you need to do and avoid, the downfalls and the pitfalls of life. Similar to what you just said about the tying the tie. Like, however I can be helpful to somebody, I'm gonna do my best to give that information out. What good is it for me to keep that? Like, why would I do that? Especially for our young people, right?
Yeah. For those outside of the gate, though, because for those outside of the gate, my old mentor would say the game is to be sold and not told.
That's what I'm trying to say. And we be on social media telling everything.
Exactly.
Oh, what does this mean? And everybody, why are you telling them? Why? Well, let's take a little bit of a pivot. We hear a lot about achievement gaps, and I kind of touched on it in my earlier comments. What do you think those conversations get wrong? Especially, I think when we talk about young Black men, when we, they're not going to college, they're not graduating from high school. What are folks getting wrong about that conversation?
The phrase itself, the achievement gap, puts the responsibility on the student. What it doesn't account for is the gap in opportunity, the gap in access, the gap in how students are treated inside systems that were never intentionally designed for them. So I feel like as a practitioner, what I'm asking is not why aren't Black boys achieving, but what we should be asking is what are systems doing or not doing that's not producing the outcomes for these Black men or getting them aligned with these outcomes.
Oh my gosh. Now I think that's that PhD, that doctorate degree, because I'm the same way. I'm like, hold on. We love to blame the individual, and we don't think about the system and the structures that create the problem and the inequity or the disparity in our situations. And I know you're talking about education. For me, it's public health and some of those kinds of systems. And I'm like, they were never designed for us. They weren't. They were not designed for us. Now, the argument always, and I was talking to some folks at the medical school yesterday, presenting to them, we always say the system is broken. The system is broken. I'm like, it's not broken. It's working like it was designed to work. And it's just the fact that it wasn't designed for you, but it's working real good because it's keeping folks like us oppressed. And some people have benefit that they didn't earn. So it's not broke.
Talk to and they ain't trying to fix it
at all. I tell people it's like a 400-year-old brand new car.
Yeah. That's something. And I have gone through it. Now, those of y'all who are my family and friends online, I done had about 12, 13 cars. I done had the best of cars and the worst of cars. So that's the story in and of itself for this Black man. I'm trying to tell you, I done had one fall apart on the freeway. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute now. That sounds a little dangerous. So let's talk about this crown framework that you have. Can you talk a little bit about that? I was kind of touching on it, looking through it, but I will expand. Help us understand.
All right. Well, number one, I think it's important to make sure we always acknowledge the crowns in our head, which is why I came up with the crown framework. We are kings and queens. I saw queen come up in your open, and I was like, that's right, represent for us, queen. But the crown framework is sort of a reimagining of development, but through a culturally responsive, justice-centric lens. In a lot of spaces, we talk about personal development, growth and development, and we often credit Maslow with taking us through this part of self-actualization, which I am a scholar of. I do love it, but it doesn't account necessarily for the cultural experience of Black men, their intersectional identities, their race, their economic status, their gender, their justice involvement, their access to education. And so I came up with some tiers of my own, represented by the acronym CROWN. The first being care and stability. So before anything else, students need their basic needs met. If a student is dealing with housing instability or food insecurity, nothing else sticks. Then the next one, restoration of safety and trust. And I made sure that I said restoration of safety and trust, because this is about repairing harm, not just individual harm, but systemic harm, creating environments where students feel psychologically and culturally safe. Psychologically and culturally safe. We cannot forget about the cultural part, because some things we know, some stuff we would say, oh, that's in-house business. You don't go tell your business outside, but we got to be able to give some safe spaces for that. Opportunities for connection is the O. Relationships are everything. Mentorship, belonging, community, that's where transformation starts. Worth and empowerment is the W. Helping students see themselves as capable and valuable and powerful. We got to do some identity work, knowing who you are, whose you are, for my faith people. And then in next level clarity, and I was specific on next level clarity. Don't just be clear, take your clarity to the next level. That's where purpose, direction, and what I call Black boy joy comes into full play. And so that's my crown framework.
Wow. This is amazing, because I think you touched on some very important concepts. Like I said, I'm on social media a lot. My bad. I'll be on Threads and Instagram, and I see a lot of discourse between Black men and Black men to Black women. And I see that there's some of these things that you are talking about are things that I feel like are missing, especially in our younger men, if they're not, or the younger boys that are not having those relationships that you kind of touched on earlier. Maybe there's no uncle or no dad or grandpa around, that sense of safety. I don't know if people understand how important a sense of safety is in a person's life. When you don't feel safe, you make crazy decisions, wrong decisions, bad decisions. There's a whole host of things that can happen when you don't feel safe. And ultimately, what most people are doing in their lives is trying to figure out how to get safe. And for some people, that is maladaptive behaviors, drinking, alcohol, drugs. They're trying to get to safety in the best way that they can. So even that idea of safety and trust, so very important. And those opportunities for connection, like I said, I feel like there's this, what is it called? The male loneliness epidemic. I don't know how real that is, but if it is, a real thing that's a big issue, that opportunities for connection really will help address some of those issues. So this is great. And I wonder, how does this framework look in practice? Like, where are you using this framework?
Absolutely. So as was mentioned, I work for a college access program. And before that, I worked in admissions and student affairs. I've had a long-standing career in higher education, thanks be to God. And what I've been noticing, you mentioned health equity earlier, shameless plug. I have an op-ed piece coming out that talks about sense of belonging as a health equity issue. So that's going to be coming up soon because it's a problem. But in spaces where we are, what I end up talking about is that access is not enough. There has to be a space that affirms them. There has to be community. There has to be belonging. These types of things have to come up. So this CROWN framework, I've actually also developed a curriculum, a 12-week curriculum, which can be done in smaller parts as well, called the CROWN and Forge curriculum, that takes young men through a process of finding their crown, of building their identity. I want to make sure that in institutions of higher learning and faith-based institutions and in educational institutions that myself as a practitioner, I'm able to come in and train the trainer workshops on how to work in a culturally affirming way, not just culturally affirming, but culturally responsive, making sure that we respond to what's going on, teaching teachers how to do that, helping give voice to student concerns. And that was a big part of my research. I wanted to make sure that I got the voice of the students and the voice of the teachers to understand where's the disconnect in the accountability. What do Black males perceive that they need, and what do educators perceive as their role in meeting those needs? And so I'm taking this framework and I'm embedding it systemically into curricula. I'm embedding it into community organizations coming in to teach these types of things. I'm making sure that when I design programs at universities, that these programs are designed with elements of this framework in mind.
Amazing. You talked a little bit about educational inequity, and we both, I think, have a good grasp on this whole concept of inequity, but you framed it as a human rights issue, which it is. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So I recently got the opportunity to share a little bit for the United Nations forum on forum on African American people, right? And so I want to shout out to the Black Doctors Matter and Dr. Pamela Felder Small for the opportunity to do that. And I was able to share that it is a human rights concern for people to be able to have access to education, to be able to be fully engaged and welcomed and involved in things, to be able to express themselves, their gender identity, all these types of things. It's not a luxury. It's essential for health equity. And when institutions fail to create inclusive environments, the cumulative effects of the exclusion manifests in stress and isolation and reduced capacity to participate in fully academic and co-curricular life. And so I talk about how we need to be able to have initiatives that cultivate self-advocacy and leadership and a sense of purpose. And I was able to share pieces of that CROWN framework and talk about how this sense of belonging and how it is an inalienable right to be able to have this access and not something that should be afforded to someone based upon what they're able to access based on their intersectional identity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we have so much to do in this education space on all levels, of course. But, this whole idea of belonging and talking about education inequity as a human rights issue is so important. I remember in my doctoral program, I can't remember her name. There's a researcher, and she wrote a lot of articles about that. I keep wanting to call her Gloria Ladson-Billings or something of that nature. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Yeah. See. Okay. Well, The scholars is like, yes, you know, when you can start citing people's writing, like, yeah, whoopty whoop said, I'm like, see, this
Exactly.
one, you know, you have definitely crossed the line in your head, like, wow.
Yes.
'Cause I do that sometimes, like whoopty whoop said, and I'm like, see, oh boy,
Yeah.
woo.
I'm a Billings, Gloria Ladson Billings, Zaretta Hammond, Pedro Noguera, like those are my go-tos. Of course, Kendi. Yeah.
Now you know Pedro Noguera is the dean of the school
Oh,
that I
I
went
know.
to.
Oh, I know. When I was on campus, I was like, "Excuse me, hi. I'd like to meet you and get to know." Yeah, I was able also to meet Sean Harper while I was working there.
Man.
Another scholar that definitely is also my frat, Yo to the Noops. So Sean Harper was a great influence. So I appreciate him for taking time to mentor me as I was coming into a leadership role. No matter how large or small, he made himself available, and I appreciated that.
And that's amazing. I love that. I love that. He's great. I think he gave our commencement speech. I
Okay.
think I have to think back because it was a blur. Oh, that day was crazy. What does accountability actually look like when we're talking about educational inequities and sort of mitigating those and all the things that you've been talking about? What would accountability look like in that space?
I'm so glad that you called it that because a lot of times we're avoiding accountability when it comes to this, which is why I called it a human rights issue. It forces us to move beyond surface level solutions and actually address the root causes. And that's why it was so important to me to share that in a global space, because it shows that it's not just a local issue. It's a part of a broader conversation that we must have about equity and access. And justice across different systems. So accountability looks like access to equitable education. It looks like making sure that the education systems and institutional things are taken care of. We got to make sure that we call the things. And speaking of calling the things, a lot of times we say they didn't mean it that way, or oh, you may have perceived it that way. I said I wasn't going to talk about this, but when I was doing my research, I used critical race theory as a framework for my case study, and it was not welcomed well. And I said, okay, well, I want to talk about how this happens systemically in this level, individual, institutional, systemic. And they told me, perhaps you should use constructivist theory. And as I started to look into constructivist theory, it basically posited the idea that what I was experiencing was based on my life. And maybe it could exist, it could not exist. We don't want to call the things the things. We don't want to talk about back to those gatekeepers. Who are the people that are the gatekeepers at the doors of the institution that are giving credibility or discrediting what we do and say? It took a lot for my research to even get to where it is, because there were so many people that did not want to be accountable because what my research posited made them accountable and they didn't feel comfortable.
They didn't want to deal with it. It's no surprise. It's no surprise at all that we have to also acknowledge that a doctoral program is also education, and there's inequity there, there's disparity there, there's bias even in that space. And I have heard other scholars say, yeah, they were discouraging me from using critical race theory, or they were discouraging me from doing this particular concept. Why does it have to be about this? And I'm like, this is the problem, the same problem that happens in organizations that on the one hand put out these statements about they're this and they're anti this and they're anti that. But then when it comes down to the work, they're still reinforcing the same thing that they've always reinforced. So then it's like, why are you lying? Why are you saying you're about this, but you're actually not? So I think, this all is just a symptom. It's the same song on a different day. Like, what are we doing? And I use critical race theory as well. And thankfully, I didn't get no pushback. I think that my chair has a transformative justice lens, and she actually on purpose, I think something must have happened at some point in at that school where they were like, we have to put all the social justice minded people with this one particular chair because she has the sensibility and understanding. So I didn't get pushback, but I'm sure if I had been with a different chair, they probably would have said, yeah. Worry about yourself.
Let them know. Tell them Dr. Vick said.
And then the last question, because we almost had time.
Okay.
What would it look like for Black boys to truly thrive in our education system?
Ooh, what would it look? It would look like systems that recognize their humanity from the start, not having to be told, not after they prove themselves. You want to, we go into that talented 10. It would look like joy being normalized and not exceptional. It would look like our brilliance not being misinterpreted for defiance. It would look like our resilience not being required as a part of daily life. It would look like not having to be in survival mode. One of the things I talk about is racial battle fatigue. We need a space to be able to rest, right? We go through trauma based on the experiences of what we're living as Black men in America. I can think when the lights light up behind me and a siren comes, I think, am I going to live to see tomorrow? I'd have been pulled over and handcuffed and bow tied with students in my car. What does it look like? It looks like not having to explain that I am their professor taking them on a field trip, and because I dodged to miss a cat in the road, I'm not drunk driving. It looks like that.
I hope and pray that that day comes sooner rather than later. I don't know what this is going to require. A lot of us have the thought, baby, we're going to have to just tear this system down and rebuild it. If it's that, that's fine. We can do it. But whatever it is, we got to get this together, because this is insane. And it's so pervasive, especially in this country. It's really harming our young Black men and our young Black girls too, but we talking about Black boys today. And we really need to rectify and fix this. I'm also wondering, and I know we got 4 minutes left, but I'm also like, do we need to go back to the old school? We create our own schools. Do we pull all of our kids out and we homeschool? Like what do we need to do?
You're talking good to me now. So my presentation at Dominguez at the Harambe Summit, shout out to them for their inaugural summit, was entitled Decolonizing Discipline. And I talk about all these, we identified these gaps. But I actually said the community school model of the Oakland Community School had something that we're saying needs to be, it existed, but they went through wellness. They made sure that food was taken care of. They involved the community. There are so many different things that have been in place. We got the sauce, but we out here letting people make us eat it dry.
And we just be like, "Ooh, that's good."
And I don't want it no more. Gag, give it back. Yuck.
That's what we need to get to the place of collectively. Some of us is tripping, and we need to either pull them in, like, come on, because you playing, or you gotta go on over there, because we on this time, we over here. So I feel like we can have a whole host of conversations, because my topic was decolonizing how we teach public health. So I think we was on a decolonization.
We were pushing out the colonizers. I think maybe we might need to do some co-presenting sometime soon. It sounds like something cooking.
I think so. Let's do that. Let's definitely do that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Swan, for being here. And hey, don't trip if I call you to come back again sometime in the future for another conversation.
Please call me back.
Oh, for sure. So we're going to go ahead and do my closeout. So just don't mind me, because we're going to close out. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. This was a great episode. If you guys are interested in other topics, let me know. I'm always meeting people. And we can bring them on. Or if you know someone like you should talk to this, let me know. But in the meantime, you can find more information about me on my website, www.NicoleDVick.com. My books is all up on there. You know, I got 1, 2, 3, like 3, 4 of them. Push Through, Finding the Light in Every Lesson, Pushing Through 52 Weeks of Light in Tough Times. Triumph in the Trenches is the anthology. I'm one of 22 authors there, and we're talking about how to survive the workplace for Black folk, because, you know, it's a little different. Just like we talked about education inequities, I talk about public health inequities. It's funny style at work too, child. You go to work and microaggressions and all other kind of things happening. Also, follow me on social media. I think LinkedIn is my most active social media channel right now. I sometimes post on Instagram. I have 2 Instagram accounts. If you want to see me, just me, it's Nicole D. Vick. If you want to see me professionally, it's Dr. VICKtorious. And I think that's everything that I'm supposed to say. I'll see you next week. And next week, I'm going to have the follow-up conversation around homelessness. I spoke to my friend and she said, I would love to come on. So she's going to come on next week and give her expertise on the homelessness issue here in Los Angeles. All right, y'all. I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for watching Pyro Media Network. For more information, please visit pyromedianetwork.com.